And welcome back to AR Sales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am A.R.T, and today I am joined by Keylee Hargis, author of Royal Bond and War Bond, like a gazillion views on the different reading websites that you can go and find it. I mean, like, unreal. This is probably basically across the way of however the recording goes. She's gonna be on my left side or my right side. This person right here or there is the Stephen King of like this new shit. I've never, I mean, I'm telling you, like I've never heard, like I have not spoken to somebody as poppin' as you are right now. I cannot lie. And it's not to say that like it's not a talent thing. It's just numbers. Sorry, people. It's unreal. The numbers are behind Royal Bond and War Bond and just everything going on with that are insane. Just say hi to the people.
Hey, yeah, so the Royal Bond I originally published in October of 2020. It originally was on the free publishing platform known as Wattpad, and that book alone gained 13 million reads, which led me to publishing. Yeah, and so the series alone that's on there, or was on there, I think together the series was almost about at 30 million reads. So that definitely led me to wanting to publish more and getting actually, in physical copies and things like that.
That is just insane to me. 30 million. To me, that is the clear-cut definition of you understanding your audience and your audience knowing what to expect from you. I think that's like the highest level of like synergy that we can hope to get from an audience to like creative aspects. Because I mean, 30 million, as far as I know, you don't have a TikTok or like, you don't have a makeup line or anything like that. Like there's nothing like supplanting those 30 million. Those people went and followed you because of the writing. There's nothing else driving them there other than the content you're producing.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely it's honestly, I never expected anything from it. I was a very young writer when I first started on Wattpad. And I think my following there is kind of what definitely got me where I am today. They followed me from there to, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, where my other books are at, and they started buying those. So it really meant a lot to me that I created such a fan base to where they wanted to continue to strive with me. And I dedicated my first book to them. They are truly like, they mean the world to me. And I honestly would not be where I am without the people from Wattpad. So I'm very grateful.
Now, how do you feel with this new inclusion of Kindle Vella? Because Kindle Vella is basically like the Amazon's response to Wattpad in the sense that actually you can get financial gains from the same way that you would with the normal Kindle self-publishing route. So do you think that's the new route? Do you think you're going to start making continue the Bond series in the Vella sphere so you can still have that Wattpad thing that's like, seasonal, every week they're going to expect to see an episode or a new chapter or a new whatever, however you want to divide it up, but you're still getting the money instead. Because from what I understand, Wattpad is free, completely free, meaning that you're not getting any money outside of like just people hitting you up for like how well you're doing, but there's not like a dollar amount you're getting per read.
Right. Wattpad's changed a little bit over the years. I think they do paid stories sometimes now. But not everyone gets that opportunity. I never went to Wattpad Stars to where I did that. So something like what Kindle's doing now, I think that's a very interesting opportunity. Me personally, I also work for Radish Media Incorporated, and they are kind of like that. They, I can do a chapter a week or how many ever I want to a week. So personally, I probably wouldn't go that route. Just because I do have a lot on my plate with doing that and some other things. But I do think it's a very interesting opportunity, especially for authors that, want to take that one step at a time and do something along those lines.
Wow. Well, honestly, just from my point of view, just standing there as like a fellow author and being in that space, I'm awestruck because I'm looking back at my own kind of career path and I'm thinking like the main thing that like really dwindles the whole like game, right, is that like the amount of marketing you have to do. You can write the best book on the planet and the chance of it like really popping off, unless you're doing an insane amount of marketing behind it, are slim. Amazon dropped like 30 million, released 30 million self-published titles this year, not lifetime, this year, from 2021 to 2021, 2020 to 2021, 30 million new titles. That's like, it's oversaturation of content. but I feel like you cracked the code because you were able to do it in a way that's free. Because like the whole thing about that is that you're gaining, even if the book is only $1 or $4, you have to allow a person to like, they have to invest in it in order to read. Well, you put yourself in a method that like people, it's like, oh, it was free. You developed a huge fan base based on your content, and then the moment that you want to flip over and just whatever it is, those people followed you. Like to me, that is the blueprint, especially with like the self game. Like I don't know, how did you land on that? Was that intentional? Were you having like some Machiavellian Monopoly plots back in the day? Just like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hit him with this 4 or 5 years. I'm gonna smack him with this. Watch. Or did it just happen perfectly?
It just happened. I got really lucky. Like I said, I never expected it to go anywhere. It was just, I grew a passion for writing, and through reading I get all these ideas in my head and these different worlds that I want to build and create. And so I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it out there. And it started out slow, I'm not going to lie. Not a lot of people read it, and then somehow it just took off one week, and then it just went out from there. And I did the whole series on there for a few years. And when I finally decided to go to publishing, a lot of people some of my own fans were really hurt that I was going to have to take those works off that they're so used to reading, and they reread so many times on there for free, which it hurt my heart to do so, because I do want them to be able to have access to those works. But at the same time, it was like such a big career flip for me that I had to do kind of like what was in my best interest at the time. So I just kind of went with it, and I was just, whoever came with me, and luckily a lot did, and I'm very grateful for that. So yeah, it was definitely just pure luck, nothing I planned at all.
Isn't that emotion weird? I feel writing is the only profession where you feel bad for asking for money. How is that happening? So like I was telling a person, I think like a friend of mine, just like, raw math of how it is to be an author. It's like, all right, so you're expected to write a book that will take you like a year, depending on like how you write. A regular paying job, minimum, well, I can't say minimum, but like around 50,000 plus, right? So we'll just start at 50,000. What is the likelihood of you making 50,000 on that book that it took you a year to write? Not high. And not only high, it's just like you have to like that conversation is like, oh, I feel bad for charging $1. How do you feel bad? Like what? McDonald's has no qualm overcharging you $4 on something that costs them like 25 cents. No qualms. And you have no qualm as the customer buying it. But something like a book, it's like, oh, dude, why? Why not 25 cents? Like, nah, dude, how about I at least break even? You know how much money it costs just to make the book? How about just that? How about break even?
Right. Yeah.
Like, fuck my life and my time and how much I spent on it. How about just break even so I don't feel like a loser when I look at my bank account after?
Right. Yeah.
Oh my god. But like I think that right there is like the telltale of like what is actually passion though, which makes me immediately like wonder, how did you get started? What is Royal Bond your very first piece of writing? You said that you had been on Wattpad before. Was that the first thing you had released on Wattpad? And if it was, had you written by yourself? Like, did you have like any notebooks from like in high school that you just like wrote a couple like stories by yourself? Like, when did the writing game start for you?
I started writing, I think, actually in middle school. So I didn't write the Royal Bond until I believe my freshman year of high school. And so
damn, I wish I had my life together
love
like that.
I started reading at a young age, and I just fell in love with reading. And it's like the cliche writer, oh, I fell in love with reading, I wanted to start writing. Well, I did, and like I said, I had all these worlds I wanted to put out, and so I just started writing, and I just had certain ideas, and they were just jumbled in notebooks and everything, or on a doc on a computer or something. And finally, when I guess I grew confident enough to actually put it out there, because when you're putting something new out, your first thing is like rejection, and it's something you kind of fear.
You get 5 comments saying that you love it. You get 1 comment saying that you dislike it, and you're over here like, oh, maybe I can't write. You're taking a cold shower, you're looking in the mirror, like, what am I doing really?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's usually how it goes. But yeah, that's really how it started for me, was just a passion for reading and wanting to create something of my own. And it just kind of led into that for me. So yeah, I definitely doodled a lot in some notebooks and things like that. But I really didn't put out my first book was The Royal Bond. It's the only thing I first put out on Wattpad, I believe.
My God. I know comparison's the killer of joy, but I'm just like doing math here. Like that means that you had your first like author success sometime before you graduated high school.
Yes.
I'm trying to tell you.
So
I wish I had my shit together like that. Damn. I started writing after I graduated college, basically. That's when I figured it out, dog. God, it took me so long.
yeah, that's like a lot of people can't believe it when I say that I was like 19 with my first published book, you know, my own physical copy in my hands. And that was like right after I got out of high school, I want to say, like about a year or so after. And
Damn.
you know, with starting out on Wattpad and then, you know, getting to apply for Radish and them accepting me onto their team and everything, that was so amazing for me. So that was kind of like my little thing in high school was, you know, I'm getting paid as a writer on Radish. And yeah, so it was really exciting. And it wasn't something I expected, but worked out for the best.
Now, there's a lot of things in there that I can relate to that I love. So you said that you came up with the idea your freshman year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
That means I can imagine that like the borders of your notebook were filled with little drawings and like little notes you kept for yourself. No?
Oh yeah.
So then how did that story of Royal Bond, for the people uninitiated to the series, right? Without any spoilers, right? Because the whole point is to make sure that motherfuckers read this. And you need to. 30 million? Honestly, I don't even have to talk. I don't have to promote. It's 30 million. What are you doing not reading it? Like, what are you doing? Really? Honestly? And again, obviously, all links to like her writing are going to be in the description and the banners. Make sure to follow it everywhere. Follow the author. She's on IG. Just do everything you can, because not only like the thing I love the most about this industry right now at like the stage that it's at is that not only can you have content immediately, but you can talk to the content creator right there. If you message her, is she really going to ignore you? I doubt it, honestly, especially if you're a fan and you like ask her like deep questions. I bet you'll probably be friends, if anything. Like we've never lived in a life like this, people. I would love to text Stephen King. That'd be fun. That'd be a great conversation. But anyway, yeah, the thing that really like just sets it back from me is like that idea. Like, how did you start the story? Where did it start? Like, what was the thing that started that ball rolling?
So I actually read the Red Queen series, and I just like the dystopian type flip on stories and things like that. That's what really got me first thinking about all these like different possibilities of a world, you know, and kind of doing what you want with it. And it was like the first series that I read that like I could actually feel like my chest clench with like emotion of like reading certain, you know, lines and quotes and things. And like that was like, wow, like, you know, I want to be able to create something like this. So the idea got me into like the dystopian type thing, and I was like, okay, well, what are my favorite things I like to, you know, read and like I like to watch. And so I thought, you know, I love the idea of royals, and I love, you know, like the supernatural aspect of werewolves and vampires and things like that. So I just started jotting down all my favorite things and like how can like I incorporate this. And I'm also a helpless romantic, so I threw in soulmates into like the genre that I'm doing.
Wait, you gotta be a
And
hopeless romantic to believe in soulmates? I guess I'm deep in it then.
well, not necessarily, but
No, it's
definitely
fine.
for
I'll take
me.
the title. I'll join the group, whatever it is. I'll sign the petition. I'm definitely
Yeah,
part of that
yeah.
group, evidently.
But yeah, so I was definitely a helpless romantic. So I just wanted to do something with soulmates and to build like this perfect relationship. Of course, it's gonna have its flaws and things, but that's kind of what happened. And I just kind of threw it all together, and I just started writing out chapters and how I wanted to do with that. And with the dystopian type flip to it, I thought about adding, you know, what I call the personal status system. It's called the PS system in the book, and it's about, you know, you're in a pack, so it's like werewolf based, and so you have your different packs. And then if you're not in a pack, the main character quotes it, you're at the bottom and you're useless, seen as weak, things like that. And they call it the sectors, is what you're forced into. So it's definitely interesting the way I threw it all together and kind of created this idea, but it turned out really good. And it's a very I think personally, might be biased, but I think it's a very empowering story, especially with a strong female lead, who is a part of the sectors. So that kind of hints on how the story is going to
go. Man, there's just so much, like, where's the idea? I mean, oh my God. There's something that I love thinking about. The whole idea of werewolf and supernatural, right? Is there a part of you that believes in the actual possibility of it?
I don't know if I necessarily believe, but I always used to be that person that was like, well, the idea had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So where did it come from?
Yes,
you know?
that's honestly the answer that I wanted. Because
yeah.
my thing, right, is that, like, I mean, I'm a grown man, and every so often I'll have a conversation with my friends, a legit conversation. I'm like, yo, who said that mermaids weren't real? And they just look at me, it's like, really, mermaids? That's we're gonna like put your hat on? It's like, yeah, but like, why would they have so much art of mermaids? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't. Right. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but it doesn't make sense that they have so much like historical. Like, we call it myth, but that's just because like a long time happened since then. Everything is mythical if you just give it time. Know what I mean? Yeah. So like, the idea of werewolf, the idea of a vampire, I think that's like, and that possibility, I think it's like why writing about it is so like phenomenal, because like there is that slight thing of it. It's like, oh no, well obviously this is fiction, but then the fans of it go like, I mean, yeah, but who's really saying this isn't happening right now? Right. You know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that it's not like an actual possibility. So going with the idea, right? Mm-hmm. How did you know to include? I mean, like with a world like that, did you ever get like the idea of like including magic, including trolls, including like other magical creatures, or did you kind of stay within a line of I like vampires, I like werewolves, we're gonna stick within that kind of like idea and continue on with it?
So throughout the series, you learn actually there's a lot of more creatures in the realm that are kind of in. So you do have your witches, you have your werewolf, you have your vampires, you have your like your normal cliche supernatural beings, and there's some other things I throw into it. There's a banshee that comes into it. There's a siren that comes into it.
A banshee is a spirit, right?
Well, in the character that I specifically did for the powers that she contains, it's kind of like, have you ever seen Teen Wolf and Lydia's Banshee? I don't know if you've ever seen that, but like that's kind of how I think about it. She's kind of like she can sense death, and she has like a very powerful scream. That's kind of like how I did it in my story. But yeah, so there's like quite a few different creatures. There's hellhounds. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Later on, you'll hear of lichens and things like that, which I differentiate differently in from werewolves in the series. So that's kind of explained in there as well.
Oh my God. I don't know. I'm just honestly, I geek out about these type of things. I like we talked about when we were talking earlier before recording. I just recently got into Harry Potter. I was not that big of a Harry Potter fan, but now I am. So like that whole world just like really honestly, like, I don't know, it seems a lot more awesome to me. The idea of like, you know, magic and obviously magical creatures. I think that's like a phenomenal concept. And especially I just cannot get over the fact that this was happening to you in high school. Man, what was I doing in high school? Freshman year. I was doodling, but I was not doodling anything effective. I can tell you that. But like, is there anything that you've had to change? So the idea came up when you were a freshman, and you had freshman ideas, and you were at the age and logic of being a freshman. How's that mature into the royal bonds that we have now, that people can enjoy? 30 million views, motherfucker, what's up? I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep on saying that throughout the episode. That is such an accomplishment. It's gonna be in the title for sure.
You know, it like, so you have to think I was 14, so yeah. I definitely thought like a 14-year-old. So you can, if you read the old version, oh my God, you can so tell it was written by a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I actually, there was a lot of rewriting I had to do. I also feel like in the old version I kind of rushed the ending a little bit, like it wasn't, you know, perfectly planned out. So with, you know, what I know now and everything, I definitely had to mature it a bit, and you can tell from my old writing how much it definitely matured. And I rewrote a lot of the scenes, and I want to say the ending I changed completely just because I wanted to do that, you know, do a like better spaced out ending where it wasn't so rushed and forced. And that was like a big goal for me, because the other ending of the original version, it was just, like I said, 14-year-old writing, and it was just not that great. And I'm surprised that everyone loved it so much, but it, it happened. So I ended up fixing it a lot, and I'm very content with how it turned out. The Royal Bond's kind of just the opener of the series, so it kind of it leaves you with wanting to know more and what's about to happen and things like that. So yeah.
It's gonna sound weird, but I promise you I'm not lying. I'm getting goosebumps. I'm actually like legitimately proud of like what you're telling me right now. Like, oh my god, as an author, it's just like, geez.
Thank you.
My god, that is so awesome. Honestly, congratulations. That is such a like
Thank you.
Man. All right, it gives me like hope for the industry. It's like, man, if this is what is coming out, like I can only imagine what's going to continue coming out from you. But again, without getting into too many spoilers, for the people that do not know, are unaware, even though again 30 million, how are you not unaware? Explain what the basis of the book is. Who's the main character? What is the drive? Like, what is the back of the book say? What is the blurb?
So we meet our young werewolf, Scarlett Madison, and she is a part of the sectors. So basically, in the world she lives in, your financial status pretty much determines like the outcome for your life. And she's grew up like this. That is a nuanced
idea. We definitely do not live in a world like that.
Right. And but yeah, so it starts off with Scarlett, and she's just kind of like a very immature teen in a way. And she's not really a teen, she's 21, but she acts like an immature teen because she's not necessarily spoiled. She's had to work for a lot of what she's earned, but she's kind of envious, obviously, of the people that's above her. She hates the royals, which is kind of funny later on with when that comes into play. But she ends up making a mistake pretty much that takes her down this uncharted path that eventually leads her directly into the arms of her soulmate, which is no other than the king of her nation. So it's kind of like these two, like, he's not used to the sectors at all, and she just does not like his family at all because of what they banished these people to, in which that comes on of them kind of going head to head later on about that. But that's pretty much kind of how it starts out, and you kind of see her journey along the way of them kind of accepting each other's past and present, and then working together to make it their. And so that's kind of like their drive throughout. And later on, as the back of the book says, there's a war brewing with hunters that are after the wolves and things like that. And with the war brewing, Scarlett ends up having to make a decision, and that is to take the throne alongside her mate, or to choose her people in the sectors. And so that's the big kind of issue towards the end of the book.
I just understood the titles now.
Yep.
Honestly, it's perfect. It's what we were talking about earlier, like the titles for things as an author, as a creative, usually come way after the inception, the creation, and like the finalization of that art. I didn't get my name until the book had been written, and like I was in the editing phase. That's what I knew about. I was like semi-sure about the title. Even now I'm still semi. But the craziest feeling about that accompanies it is that now that you're at that point, that you've been working on that project for such a long time, you have so much invested emotion, so much things that you want to say, so much like emotions that like are attached to it. So you can't add some whatever the fuck name. It has to be a name that like is at the level of the content you just created. So I was immediately, when I hear a title, I always think of like what was like the back math behind it. Like, what were you thinking about when you made that title? Now I understood fully. Royal Bond. She has to question her bonds to the royals. War bonds. There's a war brewing. Obviously, there's going to be bonds of like, oh, like I can just, I don't know. Again, not just as a writer, as a reader. I could just, exactly what I said in the beginning of the podcast. It's like, you know what to give your audience, and they also know what to expect. And that is, to me, that is like what will just like guarantee success. Fast and Furious, why are they so famous? Because you know what's gonna happen. There's no plot. You're going for cars and explosions and shit. And I show up. I like it too. I can't lie to you. because they got me. I know what to expect, and I show up for the expectation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They got me.
Yeah. Yeah. Happens to the best of us.
One thing that we talked about prior to recording again was what you do right now is that you're young adult fantasy. That's what Royal Bond did. That's what War Bond did. But you're transitioning. You're transitioning into new adult. Now, before talking about the transition period itself, for the people that aren't aware, like myself, what is the difference between young adult and new adult? It seems obvious in the title, but like, what does that new genre really mean?
So young adult is you're going to have a younger audience. And so with young adult, you want to keep it kind of as clean as you can. So not a lot of language. You don't want to do a lot of explicit scenes between, relationship partners and things like that. You don't want to do a lot of things like that because you have a young audience. It's like 12, 14, and I think the cutoff is around 18, if I'm correct. New adult is a genre that's kind of taken off in the last year or two, and it's more mature. So it's 18 and up, and like I said, it's mature. So you're going to have a lot of more of your language and things like that, and it's just a more narrowed down version of what you want to put out to a more mature group audience, especially if you're still younger like me. I'm still younger, but I want to get to an audience that's kind of relating where I am and where I'm not having little people listening and reading these things. So I wanted to keep it in the right category for where I'm going. The Bond series is probably going to stay new adult or young adult just because that's the audience I have right now, but I have a new book coming out that'll be my first new adult book, so I'm pretty excited for that.
That's an interesting concept. It was something that, like, again, I just recently a Harry Potter fan. If you watch the beginning of the content of what the first movie is compared to the last one, they become significantly darker. They grew with their audience, right? I would say anyway. Whereas I can't, like, it's a weird definition. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about keeping the Bond series to a certain thing? Do you think that it's better to keep in that section or to kind of grow with your audience? I would honestly, I would say on your side, if I can be completely honest. That just makes no sense. Like, if that's what people like, keep that there, and if they want something new, then here's a new title. Right. But how would you treat it? How do you think, like philosophically, how do you feel about that?
It's something I actually struggled with for about a year because I wanted to do so much more with it. And, with what I'm trying, my target audience now is, they're older and they're not, this younger group of people. And so it's hard to connect with people like that. But then again, I still have that kind of that audience I grew with. So I want to grow with them and I want to continue giving new works of what they're desiring because a lot of people are desiring new adult genres, and young adults kind of becoming a little bit less prominent just because, like, for example, I think if you ever watch Book Talk on TikTok, if you're ever on that page, that's all I'm on. Like, everyone's like, oh, we want spicy, we want this, and young adult, you can't really do as much with that. So it's been something I've struggled with. So I finally decided that I was like, you know what, I'm going to keep my series young adult just because that's what I know a lot of people are more comfortable with. I've even asked my own readers, what are you comfortable with from what you're reading, just to get a perspective. And a lot of them said they're more comfortable with young adult. They don't need all that. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to take a new book I'm writing and it will be new adult. So whoever wants to read young adult can read that series. And whoever wants to, go into the new adult genre with me would just do one of my new works. So that was the idea about it all.
I have to say, I fully agree with that. Like, if I were in the same situation, which I'm not, thankfully, honestly, because I that's too much. That type of anxiety is too much for me. I can't deal with possibilities like that. But I honestly, I think I would land on the same conclusion because that's what it is. Like, I love Spy Kids. When we got to Spy Kids 4, there wasn't titties and it wasn't a Bond film. It was still Spy Kids. Like, keep it to like how I want it,
Right.
But continuing that idea, how do you progress further? So you have Royal Bonds, as you're going to be a third in the story of the Bond series. And with this new adult thing, what are you brewing? What is coming up soon? What is going to be this new adult work?
So, with the Bond series, it actually is going to have, I think, what originally is on Wattpad. I don't know if I'm going to do every single book that I put on there for the series, but there's 7 books total for that series. Crazy amount, I know. But there's a lot that goes into the series and a lot of different characters people want to learn about. So that I'm just gonna kind of keep how it is and just kind of go with that how I will. And the new book that's going to be new adult, it's a lot more graphic. It's based on a female assassin, and so it's definitely not the normal morally, the social norm of a character that I'm used to, because it's going to be a lot more dark. There's killing there. I mean, she's literally, murdering people. Which it's going to be called Sacred Scars, and pretty much what it boils down to is that she has like a family curse, and that she's supposed to get revenge for women or men who were assaulted, anything like that. They never got the chance to. So if they they took their life, or someone killed them, and they never got that justice they deserve, she's supposed to grant that for them. And like that's kind of like their family curse that kind of happens. The dead comes and visits them, and the dead won't leave until the job is done. So that's how it is. It's going to be a lot more, like I said, graphic. There comes a little bit of romance in it, and so that's going to be a little bit more in detail, and language is going to be a little bit more explicit. So it's definitely going to be 18 plus. And so that's the direction I'm going with it. So
My God. So after War Bond, how does it continue from there?
So after the War Bond is the Power Bond. So it's kind of like if you read the Royal Bond, you'll learn the different pack names. So there is Royal, Power, War, Intelligence, Immaculate, Malevolent, and then Rampant. And so each book will be so bond, so and so bond, because of the mate bond that's in it, and because of the bonds they're holding to these packs. So that's kind of how it is. And with my books, they're a little different. Each book is different main characters, but you're still going to see your normal characters that you saw in all the other books, because they're all entangled and everything. So yeah, you're getting different characters each book. But you're also getting to see a new side of things that you may have wanted to see that you didn't get to see in the other books. And I love books like that, because I want to know what's in everybody's head. So I thought it was a fun thing to kind of take on.
You actually kind of like segued perfectly into the next question. Like, what were the works that inspired you? You said, like, as any honestly like really good author, I feel like when you get into authoring based on like almost like a lot, like you read a whole bunch of books that are phenomenal, and you're like, you know what? I mean, I could probably do that, and then you mimic like that based on you create your own style based off styles that you fell in love with. So, what were what is your bibliography? What is like your thing that you have to give a works cited to?
Well, I think I mentioned the Red Queen series.
Yes, definitely.
That is a very prominent, just because it's one of the first things I really got into when I started reading this genre. I have to say, probably cliche wise, the Twilight series, obviously it's kind of with the supernatural aspect to everything. Love the Twilight series. But yeah, Twilight, Red Queen. Recently I've got into the Court of Thorns and Roses series, which I think made, because she the author Sarah, she slowly started transitioning to new adult as well. And so you can tell that in her works from the beginning of the series to the end of the series, or where it's at right now. And so I definitely think that she's inspired me to kind of move along with my writing as well. And that series, one of the best I've read in a very long time, hands down. But yeah, so those are like a few of the baselines. I've also, when I first started writing, I think the Selection series was another big series that I read that definitely gave me a look into this like dystopian type world and things that are just really different compared to what I, normally used to read. So
now that's an interesting concept, because we keep on going back to this idea of growth in the craft, right? So you went from your angsty freshman year to now. What do you think the future holds?
Honestly, I've asked myself that a lot. I don't know what the future is going to hold. I just know that I have like these new book ideas that I'm really excited for. Obviously, the future, I hope that, I get all my series done with, the Bond series. I hope I get all the books done with that because it's such an important thing in my life. But personally, I just hope that the future is just going great how it has been because, I put a lot of work in over the past few years to get where I am now. And no matter what happens, I am going to forever be grateful from, if I stay where I am or if I get, a bigger audience or anything like that. I'm just grateful in general because, a lot of people have dreams of holding their own book in their hands and sometimes they don't get to achieve that. And so I definitely am going to be grateful no matter what in the future. I do know that I'm truly blessed, but yeah, so really whatever it's going to hold, I'm ready to take it on, but I have no idea.
Are there any genres that you wish you can kind of get into? Like, is there anything that you like? Have you ever written a short story that completely out of pace compared to what you normally would do? Would you ever like to get into horror, comedic writing, sci-fi, anything like that? Like, will you ever incorporate those elements into what you already know to be what is your kind of like niche? Will you ever incorporate everything together?
I'm not quite sure. I do know that I've tried to write horror. I am not good at it. I will go ahead and say that right now. My friend Madison.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've tried to.
She is amazing when it comes to horror stories. She is, someone I met in college, and she inspired me. I was okay. Well, I mean, she's so amazing. Like I should see if I can try to do something like this because she's always branched out, and I think she's an amazing author or writer and everything. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I sat down one day and I tried so hard and I just couldn't do it. I don't know how. So I guess it just all depends because a lot of people, some people who are good at horror are maybe not be good at fantasy. I think it's all about, perception of things and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I've tried to branch out to horror and things like that. And I don't know. I don't see me in the future doing anything like that just because I'm so set on, the fantasy world and the supernatural world and things like that. But possibly, maybe I could branch out to something else. I thought about just doing romance, just, a flat romance book, nothing fantasy about it, contemporary probably. But other than that, I don't really know. I don't know.
Man, that's so interesting. Because again, like my favorite thing about being a writer is that it's a craft. It's something that you don't just do because you want to get paid. You do it because you want to get better at it, not for somebody else, but for yourself. So it just makes me like wonder, like, is there anything that you almost like want to try to do? Like, do you want to try in the future writing from a character from a different point of view, from like maybe a person that hasn't lived the life that you've had? Like, do you ever want to, like, what do you want to try out? Like, is there anything that you have like desires to try but haven't been able to yet and would like to in the future?
I have thought completely about doing a book from a villain or morally gray character's point of view. Yes. Because I love villains. I love morally gray characters. I cannot lie. And I've thought about doing that just because I think it's such a prominent thing in today is that we don't seek, the normal black and white characters. We seek more complex and more, characters who hold a lot more backstory and we want to know what makes them tick and things like that. So I think doing a book from a perspective of that person, getting into their head and showing, why they do these things, I think would be such an interesting thing to do. Could I pull it off? Questionable, but it's something I definitely do want to try one day. That I would love to do. Yeah, so I love we don't want to stock characters anymore, and so I just love the idea of the villains that are just coming in and kind of taking over a lot of things. I see a lot more fans going towards like the villain than you would normally, your worshiping hero. So
one thing that, and again, like I'm talking a lot of caps right here because I mean, with the amount of things I have on my plate already, when I'll be able to actually write a story like this, years, decades, if that, right? Is we all know the idea of a hero. You have you have like a Harry Potter type of character, noble, and like you as the reader just like value that person and you're along there with the ride. I would love to write a story from the point of view of like Ron, where it's like it's not that person. He's not the guy. He wants to be the guy. Would love it. or girl. Obviously, there's not a thing about gender. Like they want to be that person. They want to be the hero of the story. They want to have all these things, and they try, they train, and they do all these things. But they're not LeBron. Sorry, they love basketball, they love playing, but they're not LeBron. That's just how it is. And even worse, they know LeBron. So like you as the reader, you get to you get to live in the world and experience a world where there is that hero of a person just doing everything perfect, but the person that you're following is just regular Joe. Like I think that's such an interesting concept because we all read that kind of the hero's fantasy. It's like it would be interesting to me to be like kind of like always stepping up to the plate but not getting that home run. I think that's a phenomenal concept.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Especially you hit the nail on the head, like the progression of like not just how we as authors want to grow, but the growth of the readers. Can you kind of go a little bit more into like how the audience has changed in like the writing sphere within like the last couple of years? Because I think it's significant. If you not just reading, but just in TV, like the things that people be like want to watch are significantly different, I think, than we were clamming for like 10 years ago.
Yeah, so I actually just did a project not too long ago about the anti-hero and the anti-villain movement. It's very prominent. I think it started about 2010. And you have characters that, for example, Lucifer, it's a whole TV show now. That's something that used to be very looked down upon, and a lot of readers were kind of concerned, or not readers, but necessarily viewers were kind of concerned. Like, are we supposed to like this guy? But like everything the show makes you want to like him. And he's just real and he's brutal and he's honest. And I think that's kind of like characters that people are craving now. And I mean, this goes back into early literature. If you, John Milton's Paradise Lost, his whole character of just Satan in general, that goes way back then too. You don't know, like, you're not supposed to like this guy, but he's like this crazy general and a great leader that you can see why the angels in heaven kind of flock to him in this whole thing. So it's definitely like, over the years, people have grown to, modern readers and things like that have grown to want more complex characters. And, you have to learn as an author to grow with that. Because sometimes, you like your little comfort zone and, you're in your little comfort bubble. But sometimes you kind of have to burst it. You have to venture out, because if you're not meeting what the demand is of your readers, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fail at all. I'm not saying that, but it gives you a low starting point to kind of grow that, to grow and to succeed with, the demands and what's being met and things like that. So I think it's definitely it's a very good idea to see what your readers are seeking, and maybe a way you can tie that into your own genre that you write. Doesn't mean you have to go change your genre completely, but maybe adding more of these characters and things like that would definitely, I think, help out. Now, if that answered your question. I don't know if that did or not.
No, it did. That was phenomenal. Like, it makes me wonder, why do you think that change is happening? Why do you think we're going into more of a real thing as opposed to kind of this like fantasy of what people can be?
I think it really just depends. If you think about it, we a lot of times can't really connect with heroes a lot of times in stories, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that you see this hero that does all these amazing things. They're not flawed sometimes, and they're just this perfect character. Well, we as humans, we fail continuously, and that's not a bad thing, but it's just life. You're going to fail at things, and life goes on. So I think the reason for that, and that the reason we're craving these characters, is because we crave conflict. We crave things like we can relate to. And I think if you don't have that character, that at least one of the characters in whatever you're reading or watching, it's kind of hard to relate to, and you want that. And without that, I just feel like it would be very dull, and I just don't think people crave that anymore. Like I said, we don't crave those normal stock characters anymore. We want more complex characters. We want more pragmatic figures that we can be like, okay, well, I can relate to that. I do that myself. Things like that, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. They're just more relatable. There's more relatable. And honestly, I think that's just something that everyone's starting to look for over the past few years. It's kind of like a guilty pleasure almost.
Now, taking all those like concepts together, do you think you have a favorite character? Not because of their favorite character, because actions taken or not taken, or like lines they said, but I would say, let me phrase that actually, a character you're most proud of. A character that's complex, and not just complex for the sake of complexity, but like you feel like you actually made a real actual person that could probably exist that has real pros, real cons, and they're actually flesh. Like, what is a character that you feel like incredibly proud of?
From my series or just in general?
In general, it can be multiple. It can be a side character. It can be anything.
Um, I think a character that I probably would say over the years, just because I do like Marvel and things like that. Loki is a great example of this. He started out as, if you see in the early Avengers movies, he's not, a fan favorite. He wasn't a fan favorite just because you could tell that he was the villain. He was doing all this chaotic stuff. But over the years, the movies he's been in, his banter,
Disney.
his comedic
Yeah.
quotes, and now that he's got his own TV show, and he had his pros and he had his cons. And I think at the end of the day, really, like, his, the family that he was with kind of inflicted all this, and what kind of got into his head a lot. But deep down, he loved his brother, and he could help when he wanted to, but he also was evil and conniving when he wanted to be. So it's like he has his pros, he has his cons, and you don't know where to kind of fall in line with him. But fans absolutely have been adoring him lately, especially with his new show that's out. So I think that's a great example for someone from like a TV show. For me personally, from someone from maybe like my series, I would say probably Laura Lavender is someone I created, and she's done a lot of wrong, but you could see her slowly throughout the series. You see why she was made that way, and why she was pushed into the stuff, and some of that was because of her and some of that was out of her control. And she's trying so hard to make up and to right the wrongs that she's caused, and you really see that. And I think that's one of the more powerful characters of the series. So
Man, I love that so much, like the complexity of characters, and it's such a dilemma as a writer to like see how like things are gonna go when you have like a true character like that, because there's so many pros and cons. They could go either way. They could do what the reader kind of wants in their heart to like grow and mature from a problem they had in the past, or they can succumb to the same issues that they've been failing to. And either way, you like it as the reader because you understand. You want them to succeed, you want them to be better, but you also understand if they take a misstep because you have taken a misstep. And there's been times in your life that you did succeed, so you can empathize either way. I think the reason why we're getting tired of like those type of stories because we just understand that it's not real. For as much as I love Harry Potter now, when you look at that thing, the entire universe still like circles around him. Every person is like ready to die for this kid, even if they don't know him. I can't share that emotion. Okay, people don't care about me that much that they don't know me. I don't have a scar on my head. I don't have like a myth behind me. That's not how it goes. So like I think that more and more we just want to see that type of characterization, and even more so when you look at romance. It's a concept that's interesting as fuck to me. When you're making a romance, do you end it in the sunshine and they ride off in white horses into the sunset and everything's beautiful, or is it gonna be real? Are you gonna end it at like it's like oh they broke up but like they respect each other, which is honestly how it ends up happening most of the time. So like where do you go? Do you go with the fantasy, even though it is? I mean, like, again, I guess that's a question I can propose, right? As you as a fan of romance, when you pick up a fantasy, a romance fiction, do you want the ending to be realistic, or do you want it to be that fantasy of like, oh no, love exists? And I'm not saying it does. I'm not being cynical, but like, you know what I mean? It's like all these things, and I just want it to end perfect. No like bad in between. There's like a maybe like a fight that they have in the middle of the book, but everything ends up nice and nice. What do you want to see as a reader?
as a reader, I like realistic. I think it's something I relate with more. Because a lot of times you have to think you're gonna be so much more flawed in a relationship. Not everything is sunshine and rainbows. And I think, having a more realistic ending is gonna be way more connecting to the readers than it would be being like, oh, everything's perfect, everything's amazing, we're gonna go get married and like all this stuff. I want the nitty gritty. I want to cry sometimes. I want to, question, why did the author do that? Like, she had, even though I want that to happen, I'm still questioning the author. Like, why did you have to do this? But I still love those books. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. She is one of my favorite authors right now. And I've read so many books by her. just here in the past few weeks, and it ends with us. I think I cried like 4 different times in that book, and I don't cry much when it comes to books, I'm honest. But that book really, because it showed that not everything is realistic as something as, a basic relationship, and she shows how you can be realistic with that. And not everything is sunshine and rainbows. You're gonna have your flawed people, and you're gonna make stupid decisions. You're gonna go back to people you're not supposed to go back to, and things like that. So I absolutely would rather read something more realistic than just sunshine and rainbows. But that's me. Everyone's different.
No, I mean, I fully agree with you. My favorite rom-com ever is The Breakup with Vince Vaughn and Jennifer Aniston. And spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, but that is basically what happens. That they do the normal rom-com thing of they love each other, then there's some strife in the middle, but then it doesn't end with them being tied together. It ends with them just bumping into each other in the street a couple years later, and you can just see the mutual respect. It's they understand. It's nah, we tried our thing, doesn't work, but that doesn't mean you're not a good person. That doesn't make me a villain. We're both we tried, we failed, and we still attempted. Love is a journey. I don't think it's an end goal. It has to be a thing. It's we still had our good time. It doesn't invalidate what happened, how it ended, which I think is such a more mature and honestly more beautiful look at love. Love is easy if it's always perfect and sunshine and things like that. That's easy. Who couldn't just fall in love with a person if it's always like that? I think true respect is actual love,
Absolutely, yeah, I agree.
So, and with romance being something that you kind of delve into a lot with your own writing, how do you treat that? I think that's a really good conversation to end the podcast on, because I mean, romance is booming as an industry right now. Booming. And then especially when you add in all the awesome things that you already have on top of it, I think romance is a huge driving point right now. So how do you treat that romance side of things?
Depending what I'm writing with my series, you're soulmates. So you're kind of you have this connection with one another. You can, you can feel each other's emotions and things like that. So with something like that, it's, you still have your arguments. I mean, I try as much as I can, put an argument in there here too, because, you don't want it to be 100% perfect. You're going to disagree on things. And with that series specifically, I like to have a different type of relationship for each of my characters that, that have this soulmate bond. And for me, I do it's for me, it's kind of odd since I was saying how much I love a realistic ending. But if you're taking it to the fantasy aspect of it, this could be potentially realistic in a fantasy aspect of, soulmates and things like that. And so I just kind of play it by ear really. And I try to keep it as normal as you would. So even if you took them out of context and you took away the mate bond that's kind of drawing them two together, it would still be that relationship that's realistic, you can relate to, things like that. For my new book that's coming up, Sacred Scars, it's more that realistic of there's a major betrayal scene. There's a bunch of different stuff that goes into these relationships, and you don't know who's going to betray who, and that is a beauty that I love about things like that, because it's so true and real, and you can relate to it. And I don't know, it's definitely fun to just play around with it and just kind of to see how things go, I guess. But for me, I just write it differently in almost every different book. It just depends what I'm feeling with, the vibe of the story and things like that.
Yeah, I guess that's so interesting. It goes back to the genres and the age frame, because basically the new adult is new adult is how you view love after being in your teens. Which I think that's what is significant about it. Even when you start hearing about love as a kid, it's it's a fantasy thing. It's a fantastical thing. You see somebody walking around, and you put so much emotion in there, but you're not actually thinking about the negatives and the things that have to be worked on. I think people have that thing too, that love is immediately just that there's no work, even with a person that you like. I mean, even with your soulmate, there's a little bit of work. Nothing in life is easy. Nothing in life is, especially if it's worth pursuing. So again, I think it's such a phenomenal idea, such a pleasure breaking all these things down. There is one more thing that I want to ask right before we wrap up, and it's the idea of how you treat your villains. We talked about it a little bit of how you view villains, but how do you treat villains in the Royal Bond, in War Bond, in the Bond series as a total, and even in the new series that you're developing now? How do you treat it?
With the Bond series, there is a couple of villains you're going to meet right off the bat. And honestly, you know, one of the first villains you meet, you think is the roles themselves. You know, you're going in with the idea just because of how the protagonist Scarlet, she views them. So you're kind of already like, okay, could this be our villain? This is who we're dealing with. And it shifts because you also have the hunters coming into play and things like that. So really each villain that you kind of meet, or, you know, maybe your antagonist in a way that you meet, is going to be kind of different. Some you absolutely hate. There's no way you're going to try to see, because I've had readers that's read and they're like, I can't, like, I tried so hard to like to feel for this character, but after learning what, you know, what all that's happened, like there's no way I could possibly try anymore. So like that is what I strive for. I strive to have characters that are like, okay, but I can see why he or she did that. Like I can justify that. But there's also those characters that are like, no, absolutely not. I do not like them. I do not want to read about them anymore. So that's different. But yeah, I think in the Bond series, you're gonna have just different, so many different variations of villains that you'll meet. Some you'll love, some you'll hate. And then my new works is one of the main characters is actually kind of like the villain starting off, and he is the morally great character that I personally love writing, because it's, you can't help but love him. And he is sarcastic and he's cocky and he thinks he, you know, hung the moon. And it's just one of those characters I love, because you can go so much more with that in New Adult. And you just kind of want to see where he stands at the end of the novel. And you don't know if he's going to, you know, win your heart over. You don't know if you're going to give your heart to him and he's going to destroy it. So that is kind of how I separate the two, with the two different genres that I'm doing. So yeah, if I hope that made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. No, I'm honestly, I'm blown away. I mean, it's not just the content you're producing, but the way you consider the content. I mean, just as an author, mad respect.
Thank you.
Again, just for the people that are unaware, where can people find you? Because there's a podcast, there are people that aren't on YouTube. So what is your Instagram handle? Do you have a Twitter, a website? Where can people find you on Wattpad? What do they have to Google to hop on your shit? Because they need to. If you're not yet, you need to 30 million. I mean, again, I keep on saying it. 30 million people.
I am just at Keylee Hargis on Wattpad. I have 2 Instagram accounts. My main one is just at Keylee Hargis. It's more personal. And then I have my author account that is just solely books. And you can find me there at Keylee Hargis _author. My Twitter handle, I don't use it as much, but it's just at Keylee Hargis. I do have a website. It's in the link of my Instagram bio. It is not with my domain yet. It's something we've been working on. So it's just temporary right now, but that you can still find some updates and things on there through that link.
Phenomenal. Now, again, for anyone that is just listening on, Keylee Hargis, KEYLEEHARJJ not a J. Honestly, I don't know. I've always gotten that mixed up. J's and G's. I don't know why. I always say it wrong.
I do too. It's okay.
But again, Hargis, HARGIS. Make sure to Google that. Find everything on there. Read Royal Bond. Read War Bond. Read the other Bond series that are up on Wattpad and everything else that will be coming up, because everything is being, I can't say everything, but you're in the process of turning the Bond series into paperback.
Yeah. So I got 2 out right now that you can do or paperback or ebook. And so the rest will eventually make their way.
Yes, like honestly, I really foretell a phenomenal career for you, not just content wise, but how you're treating. I don't know. I feel like you have a great connection to your audience. I don't even know anything about that, but just from what I'm picking up, it seems like you're really like tied in to them, and I think that's like such a special thing. Not even just from a writer standpoint, just from a human standpoint. You're able to empathize with people that you're entertaining. I think that's a phenomenal thing. Wow, honestly, it was a huge pleasure speaking with you. And
you too.
And make sure, honestly, you hop on the social medias. Again, the most interesting thing about the industry right now is not just that you can get content, but you can be a part of the process. Imagine being with Stephen King as he was writing his, Stand By Me, or like whatever, the Shield, the Stand. I don't know. He has like 1,000 billion books. I can probably pick any 2 words. It's going to be a Stephen King title. All right. Imagine being a part of that process. That's the life that you can live right now. You can literally be with the process of her writing that new the sacred scars. Imagine that feeling. Like I'm telling you, goosebumps. I'm not bullshitting. So again, this is the end of the podcast. This has been AR's Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I've been AR. There has been Keylee Hargis. Again, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. Again, just I wish you the best. Like, so all the success in the world, all the views in the world, everything. I can 30 million now. I can only imagine it's gonna be 100 million by the end of the year. Not no pressure, no pressure. I'm just manifesting it so it can happen, or all that self-help. So you know how it goes. I watch Oprah too. So
Yeah.
That's the end of the podcast. Again, if there's anything, is there anything you want to leave the podcast? Is there anything you want to say to the people?
Honestly, if you have a goal, just run with it. You never know, where you're going to end up in life. It could be just, putting a work out there. You never know it's going to go somewhere. I just think if you have a goal or a dream, you should definitely try to pursue it.
Yeah. If you told me I was doing a podcast 2 years ago, no way. If somebody told you 30 million on that, you probably tell them no way. But then it happened, and now we're here. So again, I fully agree with that. Just run with the shit. And you'll shoot for the stars, land among the clouds, something like that. Listen, I didn't write the quote. All right. Again, thank you again, and we will be back with you next Monday. Peace out.